Behnam Taleblu joins us. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and author of Iran's Ever-Expanding Ring of Fire. Behnam, good to see you. Talk about the ever-expanding Ring of Fire. The Houthis are part of that. They have now declared basically war on any ship on the high seas going to Israel. Are they doing that, in your view, with Tehran's backing?
It's a pleasure to be with you, Eric. Absolutely. Their capabilities and their intentions are entirely underwritten here by Tehran. The Houthis in Yemen are the only proxy of the Islamic Republic in the axis of resistance that have medium-range ballistic missiles, meaning ballistic missiles that can go over 1,000 kilometers. That is absolutely no joke. Fortunately, Israel has been able to intercept all of those missiles, which is why now the Houthis are looking to project power at sea, going after U.S. military vessels, as well as, of course, Israeli-linked commercial vessels and interests with both anti-ship cruise, anti-ship ballistic missiles, as well as drones. So the Houthis are certainly stepping up the war here, absolutely on Tehran's behalf.
And what does that mean with them stepping up the war? How do we respond? Are we doing an adequate job? They are continuing these attacks?
Most unfortunately, we're not doing an adequate job. We do have, of course, a robust naval force presence both in the Persian Gulf, Indian Ocean, Red Sea. We need to step these up. We need to make sure they're much more integrated. But we need to actually have a policy against the Houthis themselves. We need to make sure that this entity is put back on the terror list. In my view, foolishly and politically, the Biden administration removed the terror designation from the Houthis in February 2021. Every single day that goes past that de-designation, the decision looks more and more foolish. And ultimately, the U.S. and/or Israel need to respond against the launch sites of these Houthi attacks on international shipping, as well as against Houthi infrastructure.
Yeah, I think it was back in 2021 the administration removed the Houthis from the terrorist list, that in order to get humanitarian aid into Yemen. That could be understandable, perhaps. But now, look at what they're doing. Why aren't they back on the terror watch list? And why aren't we doing more in terms of fighting back against them? And what can we do to send a blunt and stinging message to Tehran to cut it out?
Absolutely. So long as we continue to disconnect the dots, so long as we continue to pull punches and only focus on the proxy, not the patron, which is the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran, all these different elements of the axis of resistance are going to live to fight another day. And you can expect more, not less, attacks on U.S. forces. And you can expect more attacks like the grotesque ones that we all saw on October 7th.
Tell us a little bit about the capabilities of the Houthis. How do they get these ballistic missiles? I mean, this is pretty complicated, stuff. Who makes them? Where do they get them? How are they funded by Tehran? What is the backing? And how directly are they connected exactly to the mullahs who have vowed death to America?
There's several different levels of analysis here. First, of course, always worth remembering, Yemen during the Cold War was cut in two. The country is awash in Chinese, Russian, Soviet, Iranian, and illicitly procured weaponry. Two, the Houthis overtook the arsenal of former President Saleh of Yemen, which already had Scud missiles, some of which came from North Korea. Three, since 2015, the Iranians have provided variants of their own short-range ballistic, medium-range ballistic, land attack cruise missiles, suicide drones, and provided foreign assistance when married together with local tech helps create some of the hybrids that we've seen the Houthis parade in September 2022 and September 2023. The Iranians are masters of proliferation, and they're making sure every single agent they have in the region, whether it's in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, or Lebanon, or Gaza, has a capability that can be used against a U.S. partner, whether it's the Israelis or the Arabs.
And finally, what do you fear, Behnam, if this continues, if their firing at ships continues, if they sink a cargo ship or a freighter or an oil tanker? Remember what President Reagan did back in the 1980s in the Iranian oil tank wars, so-called. They flagged ships with U.S. naval ships, Navy flags, our own, not our Navy, but our own flags. What can the administration do, and what do you worry about if something isn't done about this continuing Iranian-backed attacks?
Well, I certainly fear these attacks to grow, both in scale, scope, size, and target. And ultimately, there is a successful strategy, the one you talked about in the Persian Gulf, that Iran has exported to the Red Sea and to the Bab el-Mandeb, where the Houthis are implementing that now. That may be exported to the Eastern Med, and Lebanese Hezbollah, which has anti-ship cruise missiles, as well as a whole array of other weapons, could try to replicate that strategy as well. And you could have a three-front maritime domain conflict as as well as a 2 or 3 front land war as Israel tries to continue to take out Hamas. So I consider an escalation totally within the realm of possibility and very frightening.
Well, they are armed and they hate Israel and they hate us. Behnam Ben Taleblu, thank you, Ben, from the FDD, the Foundation for Defense of Democracy.
Pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Of course.